Hi everybody, the Pew Research Center today put out a report on how Americans get their news from social media. The goal was to understand how people's experiences and views differ across social media platforms. So this was a survey of a little more than 10,000 adults that was done in March 2024, and they looked at 4 platforms. They looked at X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Social media platforms are really significant as a source of news and information because, according to Pew, half of U.S. adults say they get news at least sometimes from social media. On that tip, thank you for watching here on YouTube, which was not a platform that they looked at, but if you're interested in stuff like this, make sure you subscribe. Anyway, some of their key findings. People get news on all 4 platforms, especially packaged through opinion or humor, but those on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok say that news is not their main focus when they come to those sites. X users, on the other hand, say they specifically come to that platform, X, formerly known as Twitter, to keep up with the news, especially to keep up with breaking news, and they say they also tend to get real-time reports on Twitter. Facebook and Instagram users are more likely to get news from family, friends, and acquaintances, whereas TikTok and X users are more likely to get news from influencers and people they don't know personally. And specifically on X, consumers are most likely to get their news from journalists. That makes sense because if people are coming specifically to X for news, then those are the people they're probably going to seek out to get their information from, journalists. Most news consumers across all 4 of those platforms that we mentioned, though, say that they often see news that seems to them to be inaccurate. Now, the survey also mentioned computer algorithms. In the survey, they say that those algorithms impact users' feeds, resulting in what's described as notable party divides. So, on X, Democrats tend to be more skeptical of the news that they see there than Republicans, and they're more likely to say that X influences the news that they see, while on Facebook, Republicans tend to be more skeptical of the news there than Democrats, and they think that Facebook influences what news they see. Across all sites, the survey found that younger users, which in this survey is defined as people under the age of 50 years old, are more likely to come across breaking news than older users defined as those above the age of 50 years old. Facebook and Instagram users most report that the platforms influence the news that they see at 74% and 72%, and about a third of those users say those platforms have a lot of influence on the stories that they see. Meanwhile, X and TikTok users also say those platforms influence what they see, but to a lesser extent, at 66% and 61% of users saying that they agree with that statement. Now, news consumers on TikTok say that the news that they receive on that platform is not news that they think they would have gotten anywhere else. In other words, they say that the news there is unique to that platform. And it should also be noted here that lawmakers have concerns about an outside government, which is China, which runs TikTok, having an influence on TikTok users. About 1 in 5 Facebook and X users say that they are sometimes worn out by the news that they see there. This is less true of TikTok users. The report breaks down user experience with the news by platform, so I'm going to go through different platforms and bring up some additional highlights that I didn't mention in the beginning. So on TikTok, most consumers on TikTok are under 50 years old, with the majority of users in the 18 to 29 age bracket. They pointed out that in 2023, 14% of users got their news from TikTok, and they say that that number is growing. But regardless of whether or not they seek out news on TikTok, most users report seeing news type of content on the platform. Again, this can include current event-related content, it can include opinions, straight news articles, or breaking news. On X, users say that news is at least one reason why they turn to this site, which is not the case for other platforms. It really is seen as like a news feed, and people do tend to look to journalists on that site to get their information. It has been found that users on X are more politically evenly divided, Democrat and Republican, following Elon Musk's 2022 purchase of the site, whereas before 2022, they leaned more heavily Democratic. Now, Facebook is still the place where more Americans regularly get news compared to other platforms, but it is relatively unpopular with teenagers and has declined as a news destination. Meanwhile, Instagram is a popular destination for teens and young adults. About half of all Americans use Instagram, and I found that stat to be really interesting. Most see news-related content, whether it's news that they're seeking out or not, and about half of the users on Instagram say that the news that they they see on the platform comes from advocacy or nonprofit groups. So if you're somebody that's posting on those sites, does that information change how you use those sites, what you use them for, or how you post on those sites? Does that information help you to determine how you're going to post on the various sites, what you're going to use them for? And if you consider yourself more of a consumer rather than a poster, is that accurate? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. Please leave them below. As somebody who is very interested in news, I found this to be a very interesting survey. And it really points to the fact that social media is a huge player when it comes to disseminating news. So you might have a website or a news site, but in order to get the reach that you want to get, you have to put it on these platforms. And it looks like, from what they're saying, there are certain platforms in which the news travels faster, and there are certain ways of getting news that is more appropriate, different styles that people look for across different platforms. Anyway, I found that to be really interesting. Put your comments below. I would love to hear them. Okay, that's it for now. Bye.